Hey everyone. All right, today we are talking about our new unit. This new unit is going to be all about our intro to chemistry. It's going to be an important unit because it will kind of help set up the foundation for your next year of chemistry or AP Bio or AP Environmental. All right, so our focus right now is just on the very smallest building block of matter, which is the atom. All right, so we're talking about building blocks of matter. Right, we can start big. Right, our biggest mammal or biggest animal that we have on Earth. We got the blue whale. Right, we get a little bit smaller. Get to us, a little bit smaller. We can get into some smaller organisms like flowers. Get even smaller. Right, think about the largest type of egg cell that you have, like an ostrich egg. Smaller rodents, smaller insects like ants. Smaller eggs. You get down to the cellular level, uh, parts of cells, viruses like the coronavirus, even smaller than that, proteins, amino acids that make up proteins, and finally, atoms. Right, we can get even smaller than that to parts of atoms. That's going a bit beyond what we're talking about. Right, so obviously, we're thinking about things that we can see. Right, this first scale. Right, we can see probably the largest of our human cells, all the way up to large animals with our human eye. Just using a simple microscope, we can see cells and parts of cells. See anything really smaller than that, we need special electron microscopes. Also, sorry if I'm being a little bit quiet. A little son taking a little nap here. So feel free to raise the volume if you need to. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what are atoms. Okay, so atoms are the building blocks of matter. So they're the smallest particles of an element that still have an element's property. So basically, like if we took like a piece of wood, right, and we cut it in half, we kept cutting in half all the way until we got to the smallest little bit. Right, the point at which we would no longer be able to cut that piece in half would be when we got to the single atomic scale, so single atom, right? So this piece of wood is made up a whole bunch of different atoms. Right, when we single out a single atom, right, it's going to have a very unique property. It's going to be made up of a certain element, right? So elements are pure substances, right? You think about the air we breathe, right? We're not just breathing in air. Air is not like an element; it's a mixture of different elements, right? We got nitrogen, we got oxygen, there's carbon dioxide, there's some hydrogen, right? It's all these different elements kind of mixed together. So if we single them out, right, those are the pure substances. And these elements, these pure substances, make up all matter. Right. So we're talking about a very specific atom, right? Atoms have multiple parts. So all atoms of a certain element, whether it's hydrogen, helium, carbon, etc., um, are going to be identical. So all hydrogen atoms are going to be identical in that they all have the same number of protons. Right. So protons is one part of an atom. All hydrogen atoms are going to have one proton. Right. So if you see any atom that just has one proton, you already know it's going to be a hydrogen atom. If it has two protons, it's definitely not going to be hydrogen. If it's two, it's going to be helium. All right. So all hydrogen atoms are going to be different from any other element. Um, and that's simply based on how many protons they have. All right. So again, we know atoms super, super, super small. Can't see them with just a regular microscope, right? You need an electron microscope, and even then, you're not really just like seeing an atom like in the pictures that we're looking at. All right. So just think about like a little period here, right? You're getting trillions of atoms that can fit in even that tiny space. So you think about your whole body, how many atoms are making that up? But even so, Different types of elements, different types of atoms will vary in size. Like a hydrogen atom only has one proton, so it's going to be pretty small compared to like an atom of gold. It's going to have many more protons, so it's going to be a lot larger in comparison to a hydrogen atom. Still way too small to see, but large compared to a hydrogen atom. All right, so in some of our next activities, we're going to be taking a look at the periodic table. But here you can kind of see that as we move up in our size of our atoms, right, the atoms themselves are getting bigger. Okay. So we mentioned that atoms have different parts to them, right? One part is they have a proton. They also have a neutron and an electron. And you notice there's also these little symbols here. So we've talked about previously how, like with magnets have charges like positive, negative charge, etc. You guys probably know that opposites attract, right? So all protons have a positive charge, all electrons have a negative charge, and neutrons, kind of sounds like neutral, have a neutral charge or zero charge. So that means that protons are attracted to electrons, right? And you'll notice typically in a stable atom, you're going to have the same number of protons as you are of electrons, right? Because you have one positive, one negative, they balance out. Right. So in this particular picture, you can see we have four things here, right? So two of them are protons, two of them are neutrons. Protons and neutrons are found in the nucleus, meaning they're found kind of in this dense middle area. Electrons orbit around the nucleus. So anytime you have only two protons in an atom, you know it's going to be helium. And since we have two protons, that's two positive charges, we then have to have an equal number of negative charges. So two protons means we have two electrons. Protons and electrons are pretty much always going to balance. So 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4, etc. Okay. So again, if you're talking about different types of atoms, that means they're going to have a different number of protons. Different number of protons means it's going to be a different number of electrons. For example, a carbon atom has 6 protons, which means that it's going to have 6 positive charges, which means that it's going to have 6 negative charges, meaning 6 electrons. Okay. So let's think about a lithium atom, right? If you have a lithium atom, lithium has 3 protons, which means they're also going to have 3 electrons and has 4 neutrons. So you can go ahead and sketch that out, remembering that protons and neutrons are in the center, in the nucleus, and electrons are around it. So take a second to kind of sketch it out. Okay, so having sketched it out, it should look something like this, right? You got your protons and neutrons in the middle. 3 protons means 3 electrons, and those electrons orbit around the nucleus. Right. Carbon atoms, like I mentioned, they have 6 protons. So knowing that they have 6 protons, 6 positive charges, you can imagine how many electrons and negative charges they'll have. So 6 protons means 6 electrons. Right? So just remembering that the positive and negative charges should cancel out, meaning that they should equal each other. Okay, so in our video to kind of explain this in some further depth in just 3 minutes, feel free to watch that on your own time. Just as a quick summary, we know that atoms are the smallest building block of matter. They're the smallest particles of an element that still have that element's properties, right? Hydrogen is unique in its properties. It's going to be different than helium. Helium is going to be different than silver. Silver is going to be different than uranium, right? And we know what an element is based on the number of protons that it has. We know that atoms are all super, super small, but different atoms have different sizes. The three main parts of an atom are protons with positive charges, neutrons with neutral charges, electrons with negative charges. All right, now there's a 5-question quiz. Feel free to go ahead and take that in order to move on to the next lesson. All right, I'll see you guys later.